one. Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast. Joining me today on Calgary's podcast is Lisa Vlooswyk, who is founder and CEO at lisalongball.com. Thanks for joining us today, Lisa, and hopefully I got your name right.
Nailed it, nailed it. But now you can see why I have a nickname, Lisa Longball, because no one can spell and pronounce Vlooswyk.
Okay, let's talk about that. Long ball, what is that all about? And tell us
Yeah.
what you do.
This is cool. Well, so I'm an 8-time Canadian long drive champion. I finished as high as second in the world. I lost the world title by 3 yards to a 5-time world champion from Sweden. The Swedes, the Swedes. But yes, that's how my career started. It was actually local Calgary Herald journalist John Down that wrote an article about me when I wrote my first, because I know you were with the Herald as well, Mario. And the name or the title of the article was Lisa Longball. And so that's just a moniker. So he basically gave me my nickname because it's a moniker that stuck after that article.
Oh, my good friend Downsy, I worked many years with him.
He just celebrated his 80th birthday this week, actually.
I saw that, and you guess
Yeah.
what he was? He was out on the golf course.
Of course.
So, how far can you hit the ball? How far?
My longest drive in competition is 350 yards, 2 feet 2 inches. So at the time, it was the longest a woman had ever hit at the World Long Drive events, which was super exciting.
Okay, tell me how you got started in all this. Where does this all begin?
Well, it's funny, I was my dad's last hope as a golfer. I was in grade 8 and my mom didn't play, my sister didn't play. So he dragged me to the local junior night and there were 50 boys and me. And the coach kind of took one look at me and said, Lisa, why don't you go hit your 6-iron at the end of the range? And he proceeded to work with the boys the rest of the evening. So I pretty much gave up golf, maybe playing 9 holes a year with my dad if he forced me. And it actually wasn't until my 20s when my boyfriend at the time, now husband, was just graduating from engineering at the University of Calgary, and he was being invited to corporate and charity golf tournaments. He didn't golf a lick, and he realized that golf was a key business networking skill. So he dragged me out to the local munis, Maple Ridge, McCall Lake, Fox Hollow, wherever we could afford to get on and play. And that's where the bug kind of got me. But what really changed, Mario, in 1999, the LPGA came to Calgary. At the time, it was called the Demorier Classic, back when cigarette companies could sponsor sporting events. So that's how long ago that was. But I couldn't break 100 to save my life, Mario, but watching the best female golfers in the world play, I was inspired to say, I want to compete in golf. And luckily, there's competitions for people who can't break 100.
So 350 yards plus.
Yeah.
Do you think you can go further?
Well, it's funny. So I'm chasing that world title. I've hit, again, obviously, my longest drive ever was at Kapalua in Maui, but that's downhill, trade winds, 417 yards.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't count that, but it's pretty fun out there. I do think that, I do have more distance in me. So I'm still chasing that world title. I've been sidelined with a rotator cuff injury for the past couple of years, but just playing even just weekend golf with my husband and son, I'll hit it 323 just in a regular round of golf. So I feel like I have more in me, and I'd like to take one more crack at the World Long Drive title.
So tell me what the key is to having a good long drive.
Oh, it's absolutely, it's the ability to create coil and torque. And so I would say 80% of women struggling hitting the golf ball over 200 yards. Why? Women tend to be arms lifters versus turners. And so guys end up turning well. They do a great job turning in their backswing, but they end up using their upper body strength and start their downswing with their upper body. So basically you want to wind up the upper half of your body, leave it, and you need to start that downswing with the lower body. So that's the power leak that I'll see with women. They end up not winding up, and men, they'll wind up, but they'll start that downswing with that back shoulder, which uncoils them too quickly and doesn't allow them to use all of that explosive power and speed. So I would say that's the ability to wind up and unwind. That's the key.
So I guess there's probably a lot of misconceptions, right? That somebody who can hit the ball long has got to be big, bulky, and strong.
Totally. Yep, Jamie Sidlowski, actually another Albertan, 5'10", $165, hit it 417 yards at the World Long Drive Championships. So it's going to show you that these slender, tall, athletic, but again flexible. And what was cool was he played a high level, I believe, junior hockey. And interestingly enough, he played that left-handed because a lot of hockey players like to skate down the rink with the stick in their dominant hand. So he actually, which was his right hand, so he shot left in hockey, but he played golf right. And I think that helped him with that ability to create amazing twist and turn, coil and torque in his swing.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So, how's the rest of your golf game?
You know what? So I played about a 4 handicap. So I actually, what was so cool, Mario, is in 1999, here I was a 30 plus handicap, couldn't break 100 to save my life. I started, entering golf competitions for high handicap golfers, and I was hitting it 80 to 100 yards past all the other ladies. That's when I thought, you know what, maybe I am long. So I entered a long drive competition, and I hit it 313 yards with a set of clubs I bought from Costco, if you can believe it. But then from then leapfrogged 10 years later, a decade later, to 2009. I was teeing it up at a Monday qualifier when the LPGA came back to Calgary. So I didn't make the cut. I shot a 74 in the practice round, which would have put me as the 4th place girl. But on the day of, I hit 3 balls out of bounds. That's my issue as a long driver. I've got the distance, but man, if I hit it out of bounds and you're laying 3 off the tee, that's a rough day.
Yeah. So you do a lot of public speaking.
Yeah.
When did that start?
This is unbelievable. So, once I was competing at a national and international level, my first foray actually came from Shaw. Shaw reached out to me to say, "Hey, Lisa, any chance you'd come to our corporate and charity golf tournament? Come stand on a hole, hit balls for guests, raise money for charity." I didn't even think that was a job, and that has parlayed into I've done hundreds of events all across North America for corporations or charities. Again, raising money for charity, standing on a tee, hitting balls for guests, and emceeing the dinner. That's kind of where the public speaking first got started. And then from there, there was the Oil Mins. The Oil Mins is an annual event that happens typically between Banff and Jasper each year. And the chairman, Bill Lingard of the Oil Mins that year said, "Hey, Lisa, would you come? We're going to do a ladies event this year for the first time on the golf course, but we also want to we do a lunch where we hire a keynote speaker. Would you come and do that?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." Well, gosh, Mario, I had never done a keynote speech. I didn't know what it was, but I thought, throw me in, coach, I'll do this. And I did a ton of research, and basically that's where my keynote speaking career began. And I basically share my story of how I went from a high handicap recreational golfer to rank to number 2 in the world. And the title of my keynote is "Drive Determines Distance."
Drive determines distance.
Yeah.
Okay, gonna write that motto down.
Right.
Put it on my computer. Look at it every day. Drive determines distance. Before I'm going to ask you some questions about public speaking, I just wanted to go back on the golf part of it for a second. How much does the mental part of things play into, like when you're standing at the tee ready to swing? Can you go through that process? Like, what are you thinking?
Absolutely. So
What?
we get 6 balls. We have 2 minutes and 45 seconds to hit the 6 balls. So which is obviously very different than a pro LPGA or PGA Tour event, in which you have to stay relatively focused for 4.5 hours. Yes, mostly for your shots. There's walking between shots, but that's a different mental toughness than on the tee. On the tee, you have, again, as I said, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So the mental process is, first of all, it starts back with training. So when I'm practicing and hitting balls at the driving range, I time myself. I have a timer going. I imagine and envision the grid in front of me, the television cameras, the whole 9 yards. Music, this is also different than full golf. We have always music pumping in the background because it's kind of a, pump up sport versus, your very traditional golf type tournament. And so I put music on, and I'll practice and rehearse so that when I get there that day, I've done this before. And so part of that training comes beforehand, putting myself in that situation, timing, hitting a golf ball, whether it lands out of bounds, in play, what's my next move. And then on the actual day, in terms of the mental toughness, as I'm going through, one thing I found that's really, really helpful, the breathing. And I know that sounds so simple, but right before I start my takeaway on every single shot, I take a deep breath out. And it's just a very calming, recentering way, relaxes the muscles, because tense muscles are not fast muscles. Loose, supple muscles are fast muscles. So that's very helpful. And then I drill back to that training where I've imagined myself hitting thousands of balls on the driving range, picturing that grid. I think the tough part comes when I've hit 1, 2, 3, 4 out of bounds, and I'm staring down 2 balls left or 1 ball left, and I don't have one in play. So that's when I have to go back and try to mentally visualize another shot that I've hit in a competition where I absolutely nailed it, to say, Lisa, you can do this, because it's really easy to beat yourself up in golf. That's where golf can, as anyone who's a golfer will attest.
I remember when I stopped golfing, I remember an old friend of mine, he used to have a little bit of anger issues and wrapping golf clubs around trees
It
or
can happen. It can happen.
or firing them. Oh, we got a little glitch there. Let me just deal with that. Okay, we're back on. They'll fix that. So
They'll fix that. Yeah.
yeah, and the other thing too, yeah, so or firing a club into a pond or something like
I've
that.
seen it.
Uh, so drive determines distance. All right. Tell me what you mean by that.
So when I talk to my audiences about, I say, knowing and being committed to what drives you, and knowing that both personally, professionally determines how far you will go. So basically, I feel that there's two types of drive that we have. We have a drive for what we want to do corporately, what we want to achieve in our work life. However, often what we do, especially when we're crazy busy corporate wise, busy with families, whether it be young families, aging parents, we often neglect our other side of our personal, also our personal drive. So whether that be, what is it that makes you get up in the morning, that makes you feel like you could get up at 5 o'clock and it wouldn't feel like work? For some people, it's running, biking, swimming, hiking, photography, singing, whatever it is. There's something that feeds your soul. I find often as we're pushing ourselves and trying to reach our peak corporately, we sometimes forget, we'll skip that run, we'll skip going, the music, maybe the singing opportunity that we had, so that we could be there for our kids, our parents. And so for me, I find that peak performance comes when you take care of both sides. And I talk about goal setting, both personally and professionally. But being committed to that, and many steps along the way, that obviously having that big, crazy, hairy goal. My big, crazy, hairy goal was to win the World Long Drive Championships. I haven't won the World Championships. I've come second in the world twice. But Mario, the experiences I've had along the ways and the lessons that I've learned along the ways are just absolutely invaluable.
What advice would you give to people that that are struggling? They're struggling in a lot of things, whether it's a personal life, whether it's a professional life. What would you tell them to get them back on track?
I think what you have to be committed to the process, because it's going to be a bumpy road. And I have learned so much more from from my losses, should I say, than I ever have from my wins.
Yeah.
So believing that you're going to come through the other side. But Confucius says our greatest glory consists not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And that's something that I really have held true, because you are going to fall. You are going to incur setbacks. It's not you may, or if you do, it's you will. How do you handle them? How do you deal with them? And then how do you grow from them? So I think if I can give anyone who's struggling any advice, that was me. My first year on tour, I had a last place, a third last place. I had a 15th place. I was just struggling to make it from event to event. My next year on tour, I had a 6th place, and then a 10th place, a 14th place. There was one time that I flew all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, hit 6 balls out of bounds, hopped on a plane on the way home. I was this close to quitting. And if I can share with anyone who's struggling, don't quit. Persevere, go through, take the lessons that you've learned along the way. And the other thing, there's no shortcuts. You've got to put in the work. You can sit there and ballyhoo all you want at home, but really you have to be prepared to outwork the other person, and know that if you do trust in the process, success will come. And again, as I said, I never won the world title, but the experiences I've had have so far outweighed my even possible imagination of what I could have possibly imagined that could have happened, because I persevered, because I picked myself and dusted myself off each and every time. So again, it might not be the ultimate goal that you thought you were going to have, but there could be a left-hand turn in your life. There could be something magical that's going to happen if you just keep going.
What does it take? Like, what kind of a person, an individual, has the ability to do that?
Well, I think that first of all, that's where I talk about drive. It has to be in you. This has to be something, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So meaning that it has to be something you want, that it's in you, that it excites you. If it doesn't excite you, you're not going to work for it. So I think that's number one. So the type of person has to be someone that has something that excites them in it. And whether this is an entrepreneur podcast. Do you know how scary it was? I was a former elementary school teacher. I can say I was a great teacher. I loved my students. I loved the staff I worked with. I have students that reach out to me to this day. But I had a pension. Who has a pension, Mario? I left that. I left that with the dream and possibility to try to win the World Long Drive Championships. Every entrepreneur knows that when you have to pull the ripcord and leave your safe job to go try to chase this dream. Well, the dream is possible. The dream is there, but you have to have that motivation and positivity inside, because if you don't, then entrepreneurship isn't for you.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, it's well, and the other thing is, Mario, if I could say also, is you have to surround yourself with people who support you. There's
Ah,
people all over that will tear you down and tell you you can't, no, that's impossible. You have to surround yourself with people who support you. For instance, my husband, like, how many spouses, your spouse comes home one day and says, "Oh, sweetheart, I think I'm going to quit my job and become a professional long driver." Like, that's even a thing when you have a job that's great and you're doing well at, and that you have this pension. But my husband said, Lisa, you have a limited chance to be the best in the world in something. Do it. And I signed my resignation letter the next day.
oh, wow. Wow.
Right? So you have to surround yourself for that success. Surround yourself with people who support you.
So what do you do, besides golf?
Oh, wow. So I wear so many different hats. So in addition to
What?
competing, then I made the foray into golf entertaining, where I'm hired at corporate and charity golf tournaments across North America.
Okay.
Then my foray into keynote speaking, in which I speak at conferences and conventions all across North America. Well, then I saw a need. When I was at these conferences and conventions or at these tournaments, what I would notice on the golf course is 75 to 85% of the attendees were men. And I thought, where are all the women? And so many women said to me, "Oh, Lisa, I'm not good enough to say yes to that corporate or charity golf tournament invitation." Women don't like to do things poorly, and we especially don't like to do things poorly in front of our male counterparts, especially in a business setting. So I actually started the Lisa Longball Golf School for Women. So it started here in Calgary, and it's expanded. I've had schools in Kelowna, Toronto, Montreal, Prince Edward Island, Orlando now, Phoenix, and I just came back last week from Palm Springs. So all across North America, helping women find their best game.
Cool. What
Right.
else?
So, and then in addition to that, I was asked actually by the Calgary Herald. The Calgary Herald reached out to me and said, Lisa, we're looking for a weekly column during the golf season. So Masters weekend to Labor Day, would you consider? And funnily enough, Mario, I actually turned it down. I said, "Oh, thank you so much." I said, "But I'm not a journalist." And they said to me, "So you're a former school teacher, right, Lisa?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "So you can read and write to a grade 5 level?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "So what's the problem?" But had they not pushed me, that was an opportunity that I didn't even see coming. From that, I've now had my own column in Golf Digest Canada. I've been in Golf Tips Magazine cover story. I'm a golf travel journalist where I get to travel all around the world: Spain, Ireland, Scotland, Hawaii, all writing articles about and reviews on golf courses.
Wow.
So an opportunity and a job I never saw there, because I almost said, "Oh, I had my blinders on," instead of being open to what that left-hand turn could be.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take the golf out of it for a second, but
Okay.
like, do you have any other hobbies, interests?
Oh, yes. So my secret passion, I have two secret passions. My first secret passion is wake surfing. So if anyone would follow me on social media, I just started this over the pandemic. And so, but wake surfing is behind, it's not in a set of boots, that's wakeboarding. It's wake surfing is behind, you're on a little surfboard behind a boat, and there's no rope, and the boat creates a wave, and you basically, it only goes about 10 miles an hour, and you surf this wave behind the boat. Well, over the pandemic, I was tired of seeing all this negativity on social media. So I wanted to do something just to make people laugh and smile. So I always wear a life jacket, but under my life or over my life jacket, I put a house coat on and a towel on my head, and I had a Golf Digest and a cup of coffee, and I wake surfed with this. Well, this video went viral. People magazine picked it up, Lay's potato chips and Pepsi for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I've surfed in goalie gear. I did Toronto Raptors. I did a Blue Jays one, a golfing one. So anyway, so that's a secret passion of mine, is I love wake surfing. And then the other thing is being a hockey mom. So my son Luke
Ah,
plays for the in the WHL for the Red Deer Rebels, and
oh,
this is actually his NHL draft year. So watching him from a little Timbit, going through hockey, and now to have an opportunity to potentially be drafted in the NHL has just been this wonderful journey that I'm excited to go cheer him on.
so you give your son your pep talk that you give in your speaking?
Oh, absolutely. So, but he does. And what's really no, but what you really he sees, he's watched me at World Long Drive Championships. He's watched me win. He's watched me fail. He's watched me train harder and come back and succeed. So it's true. He's seen all of that. And when he's been interviewed himself, he actually has credited having me as mom as a professional golfer and watching me at a world class level and what it takes to compete against the best in the world. And he said he's learned from that. And also, I'm super proud of when he does interviews, he's very well spoken because, again, he said that my mom's been a great role model for me. So that's really cool as a mom's son because often it's the dads, that maybe get the opportunity to do that. But here, my son gives credit to his mom.
Super cool. Well, thanks so much, Lisa, for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mario. Love what you do. And being an entrepreneur, it's the best choice I ever made. So I just can't say enough about it. And so for any of your listeners who are considering it or in it right now, keep pushing through because it's the best thing I've ever done.
Excellent. Well, that was Lisa Longball Vluswick, who is founder and CEO at lisalongball.com. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast. Thanks for joining us today.